welcome back to Forza Horizon 4, and welcome back to the Mountain Pass. We have 11 more vehicles ready to go up that mountain to see which one will be the fastest out of multiple racing disciplines to see if they can beat that mighty Volkswagen ID.R that blistered up the course last round, the 107. Time to see if anything can beat that. And the slowest run in qualifying belongs, unsurprisingly, to the monstrous Funko F9. You see, we told him he was going to be on a tarmac hill climb, and either he didn't listen or he didn't really care, because this is a sand rail meant for tackling the dunes, but instead of having the 400 horsepower they come with, it's been tuned up with 2 turbochargers to make a mind-boggling 1,750 horsepower, all going to the rear wheels on soft sand suspension. It's quite a handful, but he is going up the hill actually surprisingly clean for what this is. It is lifting the wheel through the corners, which is not helping, so it gets understeer and oversteer in the same corner. That's a tricky combination to master, but he is making it up the hill. The one thing this does have going for it is stupendous acceleration out of the corners. It can reach 130 miles an hour, faster than most cars can reach 60. It is seriously quick. We're on the downhill now, heading into the high-speed slump. This is the worst-case scenario for the buggy. Lots of speed, not a lot of handling. It's very wobbly, very sideways all over the road. He just about keeps it out of the infamous stone wall. Just across the bridge, left to go. He's getting all sorts out of shape, but he's keeping it just about under control. A little bit on the brakes. One more straightaway going, blasts it across the line. Next up is our only front-wheel drive car of the day, in fact, the Volvo 850R British Touring Car Edition. Yes, this is a wagon that competed in the British Touring Car Championship in the 1990s, and although it never won a race, highest finishing position was 5th, if I recall, it has remained one of the most iconic touring cars of all time. And it is flying up this hill, actually very impressive. The traction, you would think for front-wheel drive and 300 horsepower would be terrible, but it's not. It's actually a very controllable car, and he is demonstrating that well. Very little torque steer going up the triple apex corner. I'm seriously impressed with the Volvo. Hitting 100 miles an hour up the hill, that's very tricky for, this is one of our least powerful vehicles, in fact. Just 300 horsepower. And it is under the gantry doing well. On the downhill already, a little bit of understeer, you can just about see it on that first and second apex, but it's nowhere near as bad as I was expecting it to be. It is flying down this hill now. It is flat out to the chicane, something the buggy couldn't do. Yeah, that's 135 downhill while maintaining good corner speed. That is seriously impressive for a front-wheel drive car. One more corner to go, a little bit of a lift, and we are across the line! We go from a iconic car that never won a race to a very successful world rally car. A Ford Fiesta RS won the World Rally Championship in 2017 and secured 2 drivers' titles in 2017 and 2018. It's a pretty good rally car. And it is good around this first section for sure. Unfortunately, it is a long straightaway and it lacks top speed. It lacks the gearing for it, which will hamper its time. But what it does have is blistering acceleration. A little bit of a slide out of that corner. Yeah, a little bit surprising considering the all-wheel drive system and the incredibly complicated aero on that vehicle. But it is smooth everywhere else on the hill. This is where that acceleration really helps. It weighs less than 3,000 pounds and has 380 horsepower going to all 4 wheels through a super quick gearbox. That is all about acceleration. Straight line speed suffers because the gear ratios are so short. Because remember, these rally stages, they top out about 100 miles an hour, if that. The average rally stage never goes above 60 for an average top speed. So you would expect the speed to be struggling, and it does. It does hamper its time a fair amount. If it had a longer 6th gear, I would imagine it would be a tour de force on this stage. But unfortunately, it just doesn't have the gearing. It has some very good speed around the second to last corners, but it does not have enough, and we go across the line. we have one of our very few road vehicles here today. This is the Rossion Q1, an American-built car, a bit of a hodgepodge in many ways, using several different components of different manufacturers to create their own car. And it's a very impressive sports car, mid-engine, very lightweight, less than 3,000 pounds, 400 plus horsepower. It is a serious competitor, but the best thing is the handling. It is very, very good handling because it is so light. It can really be chucked about. It may be rear-wheel drive, but it does not feel that way. No oversteer of any kind, in fact, going up the hill where you would expect to see the most oversteer in a rear-wheel drive vehicle, and it tackles it with ease as we head on the final corner on the uphill section. Runs a little wide, hits the fence, but it doesn't cost him too much time as we go underneath the gantry there. Now we're on the downhill, and this is where the speeds will pick up quite dramatically, and this is where you need to have some good taste of high-speed cornering. And braking will also be tested too on these last few corners, although not as much as the uphill section. He's fast, they're almost hitting the stone wall. That would have cost him a lot of time, maybe even a crash. He runs while he's on the grass, he keeps it under control just about. He's all out of shape though on the second to last corner, but he gets through A-OK, and he is across the line for the Rossion. You would expect this car at the Nürburgring for sure, because this is a 24-hour endurance race with a KTM Crossbow GT4, featuring a very unique cockpit system to get in and out of. The entire front end folds off basically so you can get in the vehicle. It is very impressive, but not quite as impressive as the handling. This is our second least powerful car here, just 326 horsepower in this vehicle. But what it lacks in power makes up for in handling. It's got full-on racing slicks, an incredible amount of downforce, and of course very, very lightweight. We hit the fence a little bit, but it didn't cost him too much time on that mid-apex. He is flying up this hill. It's all about carrying corner speed in this vehicle. We don't have much power to put down, so he's got to make the most of his corner capabilities. Carry the speed, carry the momentum. That is a crucial bit. He's almost completely flat out through that uphill section. That's very hard to do. Very few cars have ever done it. The only ever one that has done it is the Volkswagen from previous, and he's flat out through there. A little bit of a break on that one. He clips the wall ever so slightly. It's amazing he didn't get caught out more there. That is very, very lucky for the Crossbow. Heading on the downhill now. More clipping of the rocks. Again, getting incredibly lucky not getting jostled around by those stone walls. He's flat out. He's flat out. He's flat out again over the bridge. He has a little bit of a lift just to be sure on the last corner, and he is across the line. We go from the latest and greatest of endurance racing to the early 70s of this one, the Ferrari 512S. Bit of a tragic story, this one. It competed in all of the endurance races of Le Mans, Daytona, Sebring, and never had his chance to shine before being constantly crashed into or bad pit strategies. It never got his chance to shine, but it is flying up this hill, runs very wide, but just about keeps it out of the wall. He is going very fast, powered by a naturally aspirated V12. God, it sounds good. He's heading the uphill now. We remember these are not advanced tires, this one. These are tires from the 70s. They are not grippy, and he is doing four-wheel drifts all over the place, heading on the uphill, trying not to get that V12 to burst in the wheel spin. And again, it has more power than the KTM, and it's lighter, but it does not have the traction, so it is all about guessing your lines, making sure you get on the absolute limit. It's almost better to turn it a little early so that lack of grip will drag you out onto the proper line, so you can get that perfect apex. It's a very unique way of driving these old cars, and it goes flat out through the high-speed chicane. Very good on that. A little bit of a lift just to make sure he gets it turned. A little bit of a counter steer. He clips the fence. It's good. He's very close. He bumps the wall. It's very expensive, almost accident. He is across the line for the Ferrari. It is time from Kenny from the block to return. Last time he used his Hoonah truck. Now he's going with the even crazier Hoonah Corn. 1400 methanol-fueled horsepower through all four wheels of what was originally a 65 Mustang. It is way more than that now, and his qualifying run was not the best, although he didn't take it too seriously based on my accounts. A little bit of a sideways action there, but he is all serious now. No, he's not. That's a big slide for the all-wheel drive Hoonah Corn. He's having a good time. He was very serious in his Hoonah truck. Now he seems to be a little bit more playful in the mighty Hoonah Corn. That is a massive slide for the four-wheel drive monster. Many fires are being spit out from that hood-mounted exhaust. That is one hell of a car. Custom built from the ground up, no racing series, no road spec, just a pure fun haver, and it is flying. When you get on the power, it catapults itself 0 to 60 in less than 2 seconds roughly is their estimate. That's serious fast. That's faster than any rallycross car in the world right now. He clips the rock face. He's got one more corner to go. He's a little bit cautious. He gets a little bit of a big slide and he goes across the line. We go from the inner depths of V8 America to one of the first Lamborghini race cars. In fact, this is the Diablo GTR naturally aspirated V12, incredibly lightweight monster. This thing, it may not have been very successful. In fact, I think it hardly competed at all, but it sure makes one hell of a noise. That is some spectacular noise, and it is some spectacular grip as well. This is again rear-wheel drive V12 like the old Ferrari 512, but this has better tires, better suspension, and it is showing. It is very quick up this hill. That is serious speed, not quite flat out, so that very few cars have. Again, the only cars that have been are the KTM and that mighty Volkswagen that certainly has the record up here. Can anything beat it though? The Lamborghini is giving it a good try. He's run wide, he's clipped the wall. Again, it's amazing he got away with that. One more inch wide, he would have been slowed down stupendously, and that would have been a very tragic accident for the Lamborghini. He chucks it in, he carries good speed, almost flat out. A little bit of a lift over the bridge. He carries mega speed to there. One more corner, we are across the line. Here we have the main attraction of the Rimac Concept 2. This has 3 times the power of that Volkswagen. The Volkswagen had just under 700 horsepower. This has a blistering 1,800 horsepower. However, it's very heavy. It weighs over 4,000 pounds. And that means it gets almost 200 miles an hour. Not quite. The Koenigsegg CCGT, which is this car's main rival, still has a speed record at 201 up here. But this is seriously fast. That electric acceleration is absolutely brutal in the Rimac. And it is using it to good effect. He will have to, because this does not have the cornering speed of these other vehicles. But what it does have is more acceleration, more torque, and more power than anything else we've ever fielded here. This is a quick one. But it's not quick through the corners, as you can see. He's really struggling to get it turned. There's actually a little bit of oversteer. There's so much torque from those electric motors. He has to brake for the chicane. That tells you it's a real handful to drive, but he is making it around nicely. He's got 2 more corners to go. A little bit of a dab on the brakes. Almost. He does clip the fence ever so slightly. He clips that. He really runs wide across the line. Our second fastest qualifier of the day is a bit of a sad story. The Koenigsegg CCGT, a race car that never was. Designed for GT1 Le Mans in the early 2000s, and just as they finished building the prototype, they changed the rules that required mass production cars, and Koenigsegg simply couldn't make enough of them. So, this is a one-of-one prototype, never raced, hardly driven, and mostly forgotten. And it runs wide in the fence. That's not ideal for the Koenigsegg. Not a very good start on this first half, but it's going to have to make do, because this is a fully fledged racing top-tier Le Mans car right here. Again, never competed. It would have been interesting to see what it was, because that would have faced off against Aston Martins, Ferraris, Corvettes. But right now, it's one mission. Beat that Volkswagen. And this is a pretty good shot. Weighs less than 3,000 pounds, 680 horsepower. And it has a stupendous amount of grip heading into this. 3 more corners to go through the fast bridge chicane. He gets very close to it. He's almost flat out, not quite, as he goes across the line. And our final fastest car of the day for qualifying was the Ferrari 599XX Evolution. Because the original 599 wasn't fast enough, then you could get the XX. And if the XX wasn't fast enough, you could get this. This is a completely stripped out, track ready, racing slick, not road legal at all, monster. 750 horsepower from a naturally aspirated V12, less than 3,000 pounds. A crazy amount of air, and it is flying up this hill, runs a tad wide, gets on the grass, is a-okay. It's better than the Koenigsegg, but it cuts the corner a little bit too much. That's not the line you wanted to take. You're all off center now for the uphill section. We gotta get back on track. Both cars, the Koenigsegg and the Ferrari, are vying to beat that Volkswagen, but both of them have had issues on the first sector. Both of them have more power than that car. This one has 100 more than the Volkswagen, but they're both rear-wheel drive, they're both gasoline, they don't have the acceleration, they don't have the downforce of that Pikes Peak monster. And however, the Ferrari doesn't seem to care. He's flying through here. He's, again, almost flat out through that final corner, and we go across the line. And here are the final results for the hill climb today. First place today was the Koenigsegg CCGT, fast enough to put it to the second fastest overall. Just couldn't quite beat that Volkswagen. Interestingly, though, it did beat the Ferrari, which actually qualified ahead of it, because the Koenigsegg shaved off a second of its time. The Ferrari could only shave 0.2 of a second to put itself second today, 4th overall. Third place would be the Rimac, 7th overall, which is good, but it is just out of the top 5, although it does beat its main rival of the Koenigsegg Agera. The Diablo following it home just after the Koenigsegg in 9th. Interesting to see a relatively modern race car get beaten by the road legal cars, the Koenigsegg and the Rimac. Then we have the Hoonah Corn with its slideaways miss, getting it 5th, but also just sneaking into the top 10 in 10th position. The Ferrari 512 does well. It beats the Porsche 917 Longtail, but it can only muster a 14th place overall, 6th in here. The interesting one, though, is the KTM. One of the least powerful cars here, purely reliant on handling, secures a respectable 14th place. Which is 16th place, whatever. So it's a respectable 16th place, which is better than the Rossion, the slowest of our road legal cars, only mustering 8th overall, 18th in the tables. The British touring car Volvo, the 850R, that was in the top 20, the fastest and only front-wheel drive car we have had. Impressive to be in the top 20, beating out, surprisingly, the Fiesta, the WRC car, with the same amount of power and four-wheel drive, but the handling on the Volvo gave it the edge, not by much, by 0.2 of a second, but it does beat it, putting the WRC Fiesta in 20th, and at the very bottom of the table, unsurprisingly, the Funko did not have a fun time with the suspension of a wobbly drunk man. Yeah, it did struggle on that, being about 2 seconds slower than a drift car. Yeah. So that is the Mountain Pass. Nothing has beaten the mighty Volkswagen. Will anything beat it? We will have to wait and see. But that is going to be it for this episode of Forza Horizon 4. I'll be back with more